That boy who used to spend days in the garage with only his imagination and a couple hand tools has gotten lost in the grind of the real world. I think it's time we find him. Today is a build I've wanted to make long before I started this channel. Now, I've already made 10, maybe 20 of them if you consider the kits I made for my daughter's 4-H maybe a decade ago. But this time I wanted to make one for me. But then, as I started planning it, drawing it up, I flipped a switch and thought, nah, build it for the wife. Happy spouse, happy house. But then she said, no, build it for the horse show auction. So here I am pivoting yet again. If that sounds anything like you, you're at the right place. Please stick around, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and let's see what we can do. Give me 2 seconds first though. I'm also prepping for the coming craft show for my daughter and running the LaserPecker LX2. Going to make a couple of that Western boho wall arts I made and see how they do for her show. Alright, today's build, we're going to try this from just one board. Well, one board and 16 inches of a dowel. Size to be determined. We're going to use whatever I can find. The board I'm using came from a felled tree and probably sat for 5, maybe 6 years before it was wood misered up by a friend of a friend. And I know it's under a lot of pressure. You can see the cracks. So we're going to work around it and be careful when this all hits the wood. To make this work, I need 2 16-inch pieces, not free. I take slow, shallow passes so the wood doesn't twist and grab the blade, binding it up. Stubbornly, I push through it and we get it done. Back at the bench, we lay out our widths. The ones I built before were 8 inches in the center, and that's just not a good dimension if you're going to mass produce anything or efficiently make anything to sell. You need to stick to dimensional lumber, so we're going to cut that down to 7 1/4. I ripped the width of the table saw again. I know the pressure these boards are under. I heard the cracks earlier. It's not until the riving knife splits the wood that I actually start feeling safe on each board. I've had 2x4s curl around the riving knife so tight though that they bound my table saw up. I had to stick a screwdriver on the far end to wedge it to continue on, but no issues here either. I start to lay out the sides and stop. No way I'm cutting this board. I mean seriously, look at this knot. If that doesn't scream epoxy, I don't know what does. I cut another and slide that one out of the way. I want the top to be tapered. I settle on 2 1/8 inches and right in the middle. Then hit scar back up. The good thing about this miter saw is the gigantic maul it has, 13.5 inches. The other great thing is the shadow line. Just adjust the miter until it lines up perfectly with our lines. A couple 2x4s to build out the base so it lays flat, then pull and cut. We bust out the calipers, the best Harbor Freight has to offer, and with no battery. Going to be doing a review on these next week over on Tool Tested. 3/4 inches. The dowel's 3/4 inches. I was hoping on 7/8 or maybe 1, but it's what we have, so we're just going to go with it. For a layout, we center it and drop it down about 3/4 inches. I want it far enough down that it can't possibly split the top. Red comes out and we drill Forstner bit from one side, then flip and hit the other. And then we sand, hitting up the wen. 120 grit, careful to go with the grain. This wood's a little bit rough compared to store-bought, so it takes a little longer than normal. Just focusing on the sides here, leaving the edges alone and no roundovers yet. We'll wait until it's built before we add those. Alright, we hit up the LaserPecker LX2 again. I want some things, 3 I hope, to make this toolbox or grooming kit special. And the LaserPecker LX2 is going to help with at least one of them. Anything for a horse show auction, well, should have horses on it. I want a fairly deep burn here, so I go at 60% power and a fairly quick pace of 200 MMS, millimeters per second, I think. I leave that to burn. Well, I don't leave it. Never leave it unattended, but I let it burn as I slide in the next little tweak. I want to go a little old school with this one. I clamp the sides one at a time to a table, and I bust out my summer camp wood engraver. A laser can be pricey, we got to admit that, but these are like 20 bucks. And there's some absolute masters out there who can just make incredible things with these. I'm not one of them. I just want some cross hatches in my mind, but I don't want them perfect. I want them rough, uneven. I want them to scream handmade. These little hatch marks will soak up the stain, I think, adding another layer of craftsmanship. Or they'll look like crap and we'll sand them off in the end. Burn done. I blow the ash off the engraving. Burn done. I blow the ash off of the engraving. Not 100% thrilled at this point. Pine is always a tough burn. The hardwood grain inside the softwood makes ridges, makes lines, kind of hoping the stain will make it look better in the end. Now, don't pay attention to the stained board below. I may or may not have gotten carried away and stained the board. The handle is a tight fit here, but that's perfect. We check for square, and using a clamp, we pull the top in. The second side comes out of the laser better than the first. A quick dust off, and we slide into the glue up. Tight bond 3 just in case someone leaves it out in the rain. Just glue for now. We're going just glue for now. And honestly, I'm not sure why. I know I'm eventually going to countersink screws and plug them with dowels in the end. But like the moron I am, I just glue it here. And clamp it within an inch of its life. We got one more thing I want to do. I want to wrap the handle with leather. But at the last minute, I get this crazy idea of carrying the hatch pattern onto the leather. Now, I've never burned leather before, but I think a fast burn will do the trick, maybe 400 MMS, 20% to start with on the power. Before we glue it on, I take my flush cut saw from Temple Tools and cut the handle to size. A quick sanding with the orbital, and I round over all the edges. Golden oak stain. The engraving of the hatch marks really soak up the stain. Quote the rare craftsman, it was at this moment he knew yeah. The burn looks amazing. I love it. The character this will give to the piece when done, priceless. But it just doesn't fit. It's too small. I was going to fake it out for YouTube, but I'm not a content creator. I'm a builder, a maker. So I'll wait until I get the right size leather and get my burn 100% the way I want it. And here we are. I couldn't be any more pleased with how this came out. The hatch markings add that little extra detail I crave. The leather wrapped handle looks amazing. If nothing else, I hope I inspired you to think a little outside the box. Add some details here and there. Maybe go a little outside your comfort zone. As always, thank you for watching and choosing to spend 15 minutes building with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Until the next time.